Look at the Nelson Atkins Museum. Look at the courthouse. Look at a renovated and restored Union Station. Look at Kaufman Center for the Performing Arts. Look around this community. The imprint of Kansas City is radically different in a positive way today because of Bill Dunn and J.E. Dunn Construction.
He is the heart and soul of J.E. Dunn.
Bill Dunn Sr. is one of the finest men that Kansas City's ever had.
I've been lucky to be in Kansas City. This is actually an amazing area. Wherever there's a problem that needs help, it seems like there's always people willing to help out in this community.
His golden rule is always treat people the way you want to be treated. And he's really done that over his 70 years with J.E. Dunn Construction Company.
I learned that from my father. The golden rule, as far as he was concerned, is treat our clients, treat the design teams we work with, treat our own employees exactly the way we want to be treated ourselves.
Bill's values, he's a Christian gentleman, and I think that's where they have their origin. But he also learned, I think, from his father.
My dad was a very unusual person. A quartermaster depot project that he had bid competitively. When he got all finished with the project, he discovered he'd made $200,000 on the project. He said, I've got 2 sons in the military. I'd rather they come back. I don't want any money. So he worked on a change order where they took $200,000 out of his contract. They loved that. President Roosevelt sent him a nice letter that said, I wish some of the other contractors would start doing this.
Bill's dad and my dad were 2 of a kind. They were both raised very frugally because they came from poor people. And so they really knew how to save money, but they were a couple of wild Irishmen. They're tough to be around because they're very certain they're right. And a lot of times they are. Bill knew my father from the time he was 4 years old, and he called my dad Charlie, this little kid, because his dad and my father were close friends. His mother was a wonderful woman. She wanted those children to be tops in their classes, and they all were. When we were 7 years old, we were in an experimental music class at St. Teresa's Academy. And of course, he had an advantage. His mother was an excellent pianist. So he would go home and practice. So he was way ahead of the class. So I immediately hated him. Before he went up to Notre Dame, we had a date, and I liked him, but he was heading down to Lake of the Ozarks with a bunch of guys. And so he told me where he was going to be, so I wrote to him. But he didn't get the letter, so he thought I wasn't interested. And he went on up to Notre Dame, and he was there for just a year, and then he went into the Naval Reserve.
Bill flew an airplane for the Navy.
We used to call them flyboys, and he flew a plane that was launched off the after deck of a cruiser or a battleship. Really was like being shot out of a cannon for Bill.
He would go up where the bullets were going, and he would tell them, aim more to this way or aim more to this way. And that was his job.
It was exciting if you like to be shot out of a cannon anyway.
The war was over, and they probably let us do things that they shouldn't have, like flying under the Golden Gate Bridge and chasing seals off the rocks. And I remember scaring some small town to death by flying down the main street at about 100 feet altitude. But You do crazy things when you're young, and everyone was pretty elated that the war was over.
After the war, it was in 1945, everybody was coming home from overseas, and so they were having a big party at a friend's house, and he happened to be there.
I took one look at her, and I said, none of the planes I ever flew were as attractive as this young lady, so I decided I'd be in the inactive reserve instead of the active reserve, and I had one more year of college to go to.
In order for us to get married, he wanted to get married. He took 32 hours in one semester. Can you believe it? He would start at 7 in the morning.
Jean Aylward agreed to marry me shortly after I got my college degree. We actually married February 15th, 1946. They called her Jean the Queen. She always had 10 guys chasing her, and that young lady has put up with me for almost 70 years.
I was so lucky to be able to marry him. I didn't think so at the time. I thought he was lucky, but I was the one that was really lucky. Has never said in our 70 years one mean word.
The smartest thing that Bill ever did was marry Jean Aylward. There is a wife who has the same values as Bill, and had a lot to do with his success.
She did an amazing job in raising 5 brothers and a sister, and they truly made up a great team.
He's easy to live with, except he works constantly. But that's the reason the company's here.
Before he worked for the company, he worked as a laborer on the Army Depot building on Independence Avenue. That he worked like 70-some days straight, 12-hour days as a laborer on that job.
I think he said his father, in order to pay him a little bit more, which was like 10 cents or 25 cents an hour, to be a water boy, to bring water to the workmen on different jobs. Of course, he was very young then.
He never had it easy. I know everybody thinks he probably did. When he started making 90 cents an hour, and his dad says, this big money will ruin you.
Well, I started to work August 1st, 1946, and haven't had sense enough to quit because I've really enjoyed working with the people that are in the construction industry.
Never known anybody that loves this industry more than my father. He believes in giving owners more than 100%.
I really study entrepreneurs and lecture on it. And Bill is a great entrepreneur.
He worked night and day. He did all the work. He did everything. In fact, his first job, he even kept coveralls at the office to go out and help unload the trucks.
My dad went to work early in the morning, didn't get back until late at night. And I do remember my mother would get kind of upset making dinners, and he just couldn't make it. But there was a time he was involved in every single job, and that meant traveling all over. He must have gone through 4 or 5 different Impalas, so not fancy cars, but they got him around.
He's just a regular guy. He cared about you.
His dad told him, he says, if you're going to be successful in the construction business, you have to have satisfied clients. He said, if you don't, you won't be in this business very long. And my dad has taken that to heart.
My dad has very fond memories of building Penn Valley Community College.
I think it was a memorable project. It was a very difficult project to estimate and to bid and to construct. And
probably the best thing that ever happened was Penn Valley on their own had hired a young man by the name of Lou Hilker. Well, Lou was an exceptional person. And not only did the scheduling, but we actually finished it on time and ahead of schedule.
Mr. Dunn's things are be fair with everybody, give the owner what he bought, and give him a little more. The money is important, but not near as important as keeping that client happy and giving him a job that he's proud of and you're proud of.
The owners realized that they needed some fairly expensive controls in their boiler room, but they didn't have any more money in their budget. So I finally called them up. I said, look, just write me a no change order. I think it was $25,000 for these expensive controls. This was back in 1972. I didn't realize 2 years later they were going to start building all these other campuses. They now have 4 different campuses.
That school that my mother is very proud of going to back then was called Kansas City Community College.
Well, we called it Hocus Pocus Dominocus. We're the girls from 11th and Locust.
Today it's Metropolitan Community College. And very candidly, we've had a number of my children go through who had already received their bachelor's degree to receive an associate arts degree in construction technology.
Right after the Penn Valley Community College, we were the low bidder on the Worlds of Fun project for Lamar Hunt. It was over budget. And he said, I insist you build it in 1 year.
I've done a couple of other jobs in my career that are close to that, but nothing with that many moving parts.
It not only had buildings, but it had boats, it had lakes, it had railroads, a lot of things we'd never done before.
How you pull all that stuff together, because every one of those venues at that particular time was a separate little project.
I initiated what we called value engineering by looking at other alternatives that you might use, whether it's materials or methods or whatever, to reduce costs. We finished ahead of time. We saved him over $100,000, but we had made a good profit on the job. And I told Jack Stedman, who was Lamar Hunt's partner here in Kansas City, I said, tell Lamar he can keep his $100,000. Jack Stedman was the best marketing person I had for a long time. He told everybody that they had been fortunate. They had a contractor who treated them very fairly and gave them a good job and saved them money. Well, my brother, who still was half partner, he heard about it. He thought I'd lost my man. So it turned out I had to buy him out, and he and his family, we each owned half the company at the time.
My dad actually bought my uncle and his family out for about 2 times the value of the company. So it was a huge bet at the time.
And my brother probably thought I was out of my mind making that type of an offer. But anyway, we came to an agreement, and I was fortunate. Probably 95% of the people, they stayed with me.
He only had several years to get his brother paid off, or he would lose all interest in the company.
He made a decision back then that if he could get his brother and his family paid off, that he was going to give half the profits on a yearly basis back to the employees.
If we were successful, you were going to receive the benefits of that success. So it truly was a collaborative, teaming relationship where everybody put the cause above self.
We had a lot of work. Things was going well, but we had to fork out a lot of money to buy the company and everything. And Jay Dunn was at the point where, it could have went either way, I think. I don't think it would have, but it could have.
Bill was very fortunate that he had a great team. He had confidence in the team, and Ernie Dunn was able to be repaid in about a 2-year period of time.
The employees have shared equally every year since 1974, where any money we make, they get half of it after it's all been audited. and the company gets half of it.
He's a big believer if you share your profits and your wealth with your employees would give a lot more effort, and they will make sure that the company will be successful, not only now, but in the future.
So for the last 5 years, we have been giving away $10 million worth of stock to our employees each year, in addition to still giving them half of the money the company makes. After we paid my brother off, I said we're also going to give at least 10% of our taxable income to charities, because I realized, and probably my wife and I are very fortunate, what we thought was a bad situation after having 5 sons.
We had a daughter when I was 43, and she had Down syndrome. He was so wonderful to that child. He would take her down at the office.
If you happened to be in on a Saturday, it was not uncommon at all to see Mary and Mr. Dunn around.
She also insisted that she have a Coke every time she went to the office.
He took her everywhere, took her around to the jobs.
She loved music, she loved to dance too, but we'll never forget Mary Dunn.
We realized really that there's so many people like her that need help. The Dunn Family Foundation was started in 1981 by my father, Bill Dunn. Our brothers and I serve as directors, and the purpose was to make gifts to charitable causes.
I think they all benefited from having a sister who was really a symbol of what we needed to do with our lives here. And it's a lot more fun giving money away than making money. The company normally gives away somewhere in excess of $4 million to charities every year.
I would hesitate to try to make a list of the institutions and the programs and the organizations that he has touched over the years that are better because of his interest and participation.
Well, Bill Dunn Sr., number one, is a wonderful person, a great businessman, one of our city's greatest philanthropists. Really, he and my father were very dear friends, since they were together in many meetings and got together on civic projects. J.E. Dunn did build the Performing Arts Center, the Kaufman Performing Arts Center, and this is one of the hardest things to build in the world, is a theater. And we've had no glitches in 5 years. J.E. Dunn did a perfect job, and I could not be a happier client.
And the thing that's always impressed me about J.E. Dunn Company is how Bill Dunn's values and beliefs are evident in the people you interact with, the ongoing work of people that he has mentored, nurtured, and grown.
Mr. Dunn has been one of my greatest role models, and I've learned a lot of things from him. Mr. Dunn always talks about the golden rule, but more importantly, he follows it. You know, a lot of leaders and mentors will say great things and inspiring things, but it's so much more powerful when you see them live their lives that way.